You were talking about another patient. Oh, the whey.
The whey, okay, the whey. So I had the same conversation with her. I said, even though it's not doing this big dramatic gut response that eating a piece of cheese would do to you, you're still causing microinflammation in your body. And she hadn't really, like, her joints always hurt after she was working out, and she literally just thought that was normal. Like, everybody was supposed to feel like that. So we cut out the whey and got her onto a plant-based protein, and the joints stopped hurting. So I think that it's really important if you're going to, the whole point of Jen and I having this conversation with you is if you're out there struggling with a sinus issue, is to give you some things that you can try at home to really start investigating what's going on in your life that might be contributing to that so that you can feel better. And so if you're going to go through the effort of a minimum 6-week elimination, really look at all things. It can't be one little thing that you go, well, you know, that's okay. That's not going to cause a problem. Maybe you really can't. You've got to get rid of all of it and then slowly put it back and see what happens, see how you feel.
And I think it makes a difference because it is kind of, you know, what you were just saying with her source of protein. She thought it's just a little bit, but how much was just that little bit actually giving a response in her body? We never know what that amount of just a little bit or too much is unless we kind of do the whole elimination and see exactly what's triggering things, you know?
Yeah, because the microinflammation, and I guess I'll speak to one other thing that I'm really on the fence with, and that is the food allergy testing with the blood. Because what causes, now in your case, cilantro probably would have shown up.
I'm trying to remember. I want to look back at my results, but I actually did. They did an extensive blood testing of different foods, and nothing popped up. Actually, they said, you know, it was all perfect. I had no food allergies at all. Dairy was good, but I don't believe cilantro was, because I think it's kind of one of those very specific.
It wasn't even on the list.
No.
So you just proved my point. If somebody comes into me working with me and has that, it's definitely a good place to start. But I very rarely see it correlate, and you just proved that, because food intolerances and immune system responses, so like down at the white cell level, what's happening to the cells of the immune system cells of the body is being affected by the things that we bring in. And that's going back to the idea that it doesn't matter if it's organic and pure and perfect. It all depends on how your body takes it in and what it does with it. So you may never create an antibody to something that's wreaking havoc in your life. And you just proved my point.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly, because that was one of the first things that I looked at on there was if dairy, because that's kind of a known thing that usually people have a response to. But one, I thought kind of the same thing, like, oh, I don't have kind of any of the gut issues with dairy, so it must not be. And then especially, you know, when I got the allergy results back and like, hey, we're good. You know, my gut feels okay, the allergy test. But it comes down to me, I think it comes down to a lot of what makes sense also. When you look at what dairy is known to do to the human body in general, just the producing of extra amount of mucus, just that thought alone really enticed me to, if I wanted to get rid of sinus issues, which obviously has mucus, I don't want to keep introducing something that produces something that I'm trying to get away from. Right. So I think even just the simplest thing, if there wasn't an allergy or like a real response to it, that's just something that just comes down to, gee whiz, that's really kind of makes sense to do that. You know?
That is just common sense.
It is, yeah. I think that goes back to all those, you know, when you get a cold or something, I think that's one of the first things they say is, don't drink milk, you know, and that maybe it was like,
makes phlegm,
you know, you're like, oh, okay. I never put those two together until many years later.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else that you want to add to as far as helping others out there with sinus issues?
You know, I think the other thing is we didn't get too much into just talking about some of the treatments and therapies that we did. That for me was the real winner of it, because the biggest part, you know, the eliminating things, doing all of that, that's great. But your body still has to either recover or, you know, there's something else that needs to happen additional to it because you've done damage. And that's what I felt like, you know, after the first therapy, you know, treatment that we did. I mean, I could honestly feel everything just sort of moving all through, down into, I don't know what you call these, like I call them ear tracks, but
ear tracks work. Everybody understands that.
Yeah, the ear
Station
tracks.
tubes, but ear tracks.
But instantly right after that, I tell the story of right after we finished the first treatment, I went outside, and most of you guys know when you've had a really stuffy nose, once that stuffy nose goes away and you're like, I can breathe, but then your nose starts burning because you haven't actually been pulling in that much real oxygen because it's just kind of like, you know, clouded up with stuff. That was honestly what I really felt like as soon as I walked away. And for me, that was a telltale sign that I was in the right place, because I had done the antibiotics for 5 days and still didn't even feel relief like that, especially so instantaneously. But I think the biggest thing to note is how much those treatments have helped me to be able to recover a lot faster. I won't say that I've never had a sinus infection since then. I think it's something I will forever battle. But when I do get them, it's very shortened. It's, you know, maybe a day or two. I can automatically feel it coming on. I know what to do to sort of help my body get it moving. But your body starts to learn to respond a lot faster. Your immune system is doing what it's originally supposed to do. And I just have found that it's helped me so much, you know, when other people around me are sick for just days and weeks at a time, mine is just shortened down because my immune system's like, okay, we know what to do. We're used to this, guys. Let's get it. Let's be done with it. And I think that's the biggest thing is finding, you know, if you're lucky enough to be in a place where somebody can provide these treatments. If not, you know, finding maybe, I don't know if you'll touch on a little bit of like some of the protocols to kind of help. There's just so much that's out there, I think, that we should do regularly to avoid, you know, big kind of catastrophic issues that come up. Because I think it's always easier to integrate that into your daily life versus, okay, it's here, it's happening, it's really bad, you know, this is going to be 10 days, 15 days of dealing with something. That's just, you know, I want to eliminate that at all possible. And I think where that is possible to do is by doing the treatments regularly, or just taking care of myself, you know, getting rid of the things that aren't doing me any justice.
We did talk a lot about those things that aren't doing you any justice. The therapy itself is, you described that beautifully, teaching the immune system how to work and how to work at its optimum, more or less like reminding it, hey, this is what you're supposed to do. And I use this analogy of a highway, that if you, like here in Arizona, we've got these nice well, in a state, really, you've got these awful highways during rush hour, right? And so you're stuck here in traffic, and you've got this accident up here, and you can see it, but behind you are the emergency vehicles, and they're like, get out of my way. Move. I'm trying to take care of this problem so that you can get on the road. And you're like, I can't go anywhere because there's cars, right? You're stuck. This guy wants to get in and solve this problem. And so if you look at your immune system the same way, those immune fighting cells are like, hey, bacteria. Hey, fungus. Hey, I don't know what that is, but it's got to go. Like, your body has that mechanism and that ability in it. But if you got all this stuff like stuck and congested in there, it's like those emergency vehicles. It's like, hey, get out of my way so I can get in there and do what I need to do. And so what ELT does literally is clear that highway. It's the energy we work with. It goes 6 to 8 inches down to the tissues of the body, including into the face, the skull, into those sinuses, and breaks up that stuff that's congested, pushes it out and moves it out through the lymphatic system so the body can process it and get it out, which eventually dumps in above the heart, and we get it out through the bloodstream through our various methods of detox. And so the therapy does help you get a much more quicker response. And the beautiful thing is, I love the way that you describe that, is that it teaches your body, now that that highway is free, and if you're willing to do the things to stop clogging up the highway, that was that whole long talk we just had. If you're willing to do those things to stop the inflammation, then your immune system can do what it's supposed to do. So that 10-day, 12-day, 3-week cold that's going around the office, it might have you for a day, it might have you for 3 days, because your body does have to deal with it. But you can still go to work, you can still deal with your kids, you can still get to sleep at night, and you can move through it faster because your immune system's like, I got this, just the way you said that. I love the way you said that. Yeah. It's perfect.
It's surprised me, because I paid attention with how I respond to it with the sinuses, but I have really started to notice, like, if other people, there's always those times of year where everybody's got the bug, the cold, the whatever, and I used to always be that one where I'm like, no, stay away from me. But now it's almost kind of interesting because I don't worry about that, because your body is if I get it, it's really fast. I can kind of process through it. Maybe I feel sick for a day or two. But it's really interesting how, I just thought of it as the sinus approach, but it's really the whole health approach to it, that any colds, flus, everything that kind of goes around, especially if there's kids, it's just germ central.
This time of year is usually really rough.
It just couldn't.
It's almost Christmas.
And I think that's really important for people that, are parents, that are working, that just can't really afford to be, or just honestly don't want to be down with a cold.
It's everybody, because you, as a business owner, there's no PTO.
No.
I wish. There is no PTO. There is no sick pay. There is no vacation pay. There's you. There's you getting the job done and getting the money in so that you can pay your bills and live. So this applies to everybody. Kids that need to go to school. So we work with tiny ones, 3-year-olds, 12-month-olds. We work with all sorts of people at this time. At least in my practice here in Arizona, we work with people of all ages and all issues, because the sinus thing is huge. The snoring, the lack of sleep, I
have noticed, and maybe people in Arizona may have more of that issue. I know we've got, I've found kind of what has triggered me when I do get sinus infections now is if I do that kind of whole house dusting, or even the yard work where there's still a lot of like dirt in the yard. Within about a day, my whole face just starts to swell up, and then I can kind of feel the sinus infection coming back on. So I think Arizona's not friendly to us with sinuses.
I know, which is weird because it used to be the place to come, but I think this is a whole different tangent, but I think the growth here has been tremendous in the last 20 years, and a lot of dirt's been stirred up, a lot of building, and so there's a lot of changes in all sorts of different disease processes and disorders. But anyhow, one of the treatment protocols I'll just throw out there that we did and that I like to have people do with sinus issues is with colloidal silver. And I use a professional grade brand called Argentine 23 because I know that it's pure, and some of the integrative centers that I work with actually can be put into IVs. It's that pure, so I don't really mess around with the stuff on the shelf, which could be awesome. I'm not knocking it. I just want to work with what I think is, what I know is pure. But
I would vouch for that. I've used quite a few bottles for the different treatments, and that one I can definitely tell a difference. Like it's got to be the purity. I don't know. I feel like maybe I get a faster response with that. So
well, it's a little bit more potent too because it's a professional grade. It's probably, I would say, at least twice as potent as your average that you'll find in the health food store. The key with silver, it was the original antibiotic of the 1900s. It's not new, but it needs to be pure. Colloidal just means it's suspended in water, so it needs to just be silver and water. No proteins, no binders, no fillers, no preservatives. Silver and water. And so when there's those other products in there is when things like Blue Man stuff comes up. And I know there's a fear around that, but when it's pure, it is in and out of the body very, very fast. And anyhow.
I've drank a lot of it, and I'm not, well, I might be really pale, but I'm not blue, so just to kind of anybody that might ever have fear with it.
So the protocol that I use is a little bit different as far as the sinuses go, but honestly, I'm just here to help y'all at home because I know y'all can't fly to Arizona and see me. You actually drop it into your nose. And I recommend a dropper, not a sprayer, because I don't want you to inhale it and pull it down to the lungs. It needs to be able to just roll up into the sinuses and out into the sinuses. So you're laying down, drop at a time, and you can describe your experience or not.
Well, I will say that I've recommended that to so many friends of mine that have had sinus infections. And everybody kind of fights me tooth and nail at first. They're like, what is this weird thing that you're having me do? But I think people get to that point of desperation. They try it. And every single time they've been blown away because, like you said, all I'm doing is dropping those drops into my nose. And I can actually feel it go. If you're familiar with how the sinus tract looks and where it's at, you can actually feel it going into those places. And I know when I have a sinus infection because I can actually feel the response. It's quite different when you have an infection versus
it burns.
not. Yeah, first
it's not pleasant. I will put that disclaimer out there. It is not pleasant, but it will get better.
I'd say, so if the first day and I have a sinus infection, and if I do that a couple times throughout the day, I'd say by the second or third time, that burning's not the same. So you actually start to feel when things are clearing out, which is kind of a nice little indicator where you're not just like hoping that it's clear. You can actually get a physical response of feeling whether it's there or not. But for me, what was great is once I would do that, what I would personally do is I would go and take a hot shower a little bit afterwards, and literally everything would just open up and it flushes out. It flushes out. It's not the most pretty attractive thing, but if anybody's used to doing over-the-counter nasal sprays and all the neti pots, the rinses, you name it, I've done it, and there's just nothing that gives you a response like doing the colloidal silver. It's a little...
It's intense,
yeah.
and I will say, people, well, we're all human nature is what it is, right? And people will try to kind of navigate through and wade through it. I do find consistent results when you get a dropper, an eyedropper, and drop it in a couple drops at a time and work your way right and left through that full dropper. You can do that several times a day versus using those inhalers. Because with an inhaler going out, you might hit up into your frontal sinuses. You're not going to drip it out here into the maxillary sinuses. There's also sinuses over here. Like they're big structures inside the face. So if you are willing to take the time and do it properly, it's kind of remarkable, really.
Side note, I will, because you noted, the sinuses that are up here. And for a lot of migraine sufferers, we just think that that's a normal, headache spot. So for me, that was definitely a place that I had a lot of build up in there. But you had me, I guess there's kind of a weird, it's kind of a yoga, it's kind of a yoga position that you do to get into those sinuses. I've never felt anything in that place, be able to kind of move around. That's where I kind of really became a believer. I'm like, whatever, you put something in there, it kind of moves it around. But to really access the sinuses that are really, you don't, even if you do a nasal spray, you're not feeling it in here. So to me, I think that's where I was really a believer on it.
I really don't think the sprays work, but people tell me they do. So you can write me and tell me that I'm wrong. I'm totally will listen. But I think that the dropping it and tipping your head forward and allowing it, it's like downward dog or something.
Yeah.
You put the drops in and tip your head forward versus laying, because some will lay on the couch and lay their head back. But if you've got any neck issues, please don't do that, because that will make your neck issues worse. But yeah, it works. If we can get that silver, because silver is antifungal, antibacterial, antiviral, antiparasitic. It is like, it's awesome. It's an awesome product. So we, anyhow, that's, I feel like I could babble on. Do you have anything else you want to say?
No, I think what we really wanted to do today was just to, I had such a series of unfortunate events that was just a domino effect, and I did a lot of research online because, most people, when something's not going right, you kind of turn to the internet to figure things out. But what I uncovered is there was a lot of people that were in that same position that I am, that, they've gone to doctors for migraines, they've been told through MRIs that they've got all of the sinus issues that are going on, and nobody really has an answer, or they're given the same maybe prescriptions or whatever time and time again, and
sometimes even really scary surgeries.
And that was what I wanted to stay away from, because even doing my research of sinus surgeries is almost kind of, once you do one, you're guaranteed to do another, because I don't know what happens, but it's just, even just reading through medical websites, that's what they kind of say. It's painful. It's not something that I wanted to go through. And again, as a business owner, surgery wasn't really going to probably be an option for me, because that's quite a lengthy recovery process. So it's kind of like suffer with a sinus infection and still work a little bit and make money, or be down for more days. But going back to that, there's just so many people out there that they're suffering. They're not getting the answers that they need. And I think in this day and age, there's so many different alternative treatments that people can do that honestly I believe can bring them a lot more relief than what they've already been doing before, because they wouldn't be in that place searching online, maybe coming across this video. I would imagine if you're coming across this video, you're probably like what I was, at a position where you just didn't have any answers, and you are willing to try different things. And I think that's what was important today, was just kind of sharing. Maybe a lot of people can connect specifically to what I've dealt with, and hopefully maybe you can get some answers. And I think it's just a different approach to issues that we may have, because for me, my story was always, it's migraines. The story that kind of started to follow after is maybe it's MS, and I don't want it to be something that it really isn't. When deep down it was something as simple as a sinus infection.
It's crazy.
I think we overlook the most simplistic things that are out there.
I think in defensive medicine, because I do have a long background in medicine myself, and I'm very grounded in science and logic. I think in defensive medicine, they see the infection on MRI, they treat it the way that they know to treat it, and it doesn't work. So then I think that's where there's trying to find, okay, what can we do? I don't know what we can do. Let's try this one to manage the pain. Let's try this one. Yeah. Maybe this one will take care of the infection. And I think that for whatever reason, like I said way at the beginning of this very long video, hopefully you're still with us, I don't know that the antibiotics get up into those spaces. And so that's where I found the silver to just be an amazing tool. Using ELT to break up that congestion in a really quite quick manner. But then again, like I've said several times this morning talking, that we still have to treat the issue. And so looking at what's causing inflammation and using silver to treat it. And those are things you can do at home. You can experiment with it. You're not going to hurt yourself with something that's pure and proper. And food. Anybody can play with food. Anybody can play with food. Well,
if it's already causing some issues, like just eliminating it can't be hurtful.
Yeah. As far as ELT in other areas, I honestly, I don't know. I can't speak to what other therapists are doing as far as their protocols, but it's a great tool. It's a great tool to get the immune system better regulated and working the way that it's designed to, the way your body was created and meant to work. So
we're all built with these, you've kind of explained it really well before, where our body already knows what to do. It's just either it needs a gentle reminder, or that traffic, like you said, is just kind of slowed things down so much. It needs that re-energizing and being taught how to do things again. And I think people would be really surprised at what your body is capable of doing when you just kind of give it that little bit of a boost to get it going again. The body is such a human. The human body is such an amazing thing that
it's miraculous. I am blown away on a daily basis. And I've been at this a really long time.
Yeah.
I
agree.
Yeah.
Give your body a chance. It's what it wants to do. It just needs to know how, or be retaught.
Just needs the tools. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh my gosh! Thank you so much for sharing and being so willing to open up like that. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. No, I hope that this helps somebody. Because I think that's really what we're just looking to do, is anybody else who's in a situation like that and struggling, there's help out there, and it's just kind of weeding through the mess and figuring out, what can you do to make each different person feel a little bit better. So hopefully that can help somebody.
Yeah, hopefully. All right, well, thank you. And I guess until I see you again. Bye.